Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much again for joining us for IFAS AI and Data Science Seminar Series. Today, we have two very distinguished speakers, Dr. Grunwald and Dr. Wang. So because we have two speakers today, each of speakers will have 30 minutes, including question and answering time. So I will go ahead and introduce our first speakers. Dr. Sabine Grunwald. She's a professor of pedometrics, landscape analysis, and GIS at the Soil, Water, and Ecosystem Science Department at University of Florida. Dr. Grunwald has very impressive career records. She's a fellow of Soil Science Society of America and internationally recognized for research in pedometrics, carbon science, AI-based modeling of soil carbon, soil security and ecosystem services, proximal soil sensing, remote sensing applied to assess soil health, and climate-smart agriculture. She received honors from IFAS in 2023 for exceeding 10,000 citations with an H index of 54 and I-10 H index of 116 for her publications. Dr. Grunwald was included in the Stanford University ranking list of the world's top 2% of scientists in 2022. She's a chief editor of Frontiers in Soil Science Pedometric Journal, associate editor of Sensory Journal, and had served as associate editor of SSA Journal. Let's welcome our distinguished speaker, Dr. Grunwald. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction. So let me go into shared screen mode. Did you see my presentation?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Thank you. So today I will present on research related to AI modeling of soil carbon from local to global scale. And this is in conjunction also with my research group in pedometrics laboratory. When we think of soil, it's related to climate and also land use and also site-specific conditions. So to optimize soil carbon storage and sequestration and reduce greenhouse gas emission is critically important for soil health, food security, carbon accounting, and also to create a resilient and sustainable agro-ecosystem. But there's still uncertainty whether soil carbon has acted as a sink or source for carbon. And of course, it highly depends on multiple factors, including human and natural factors that vary geographically and across scale. Now, in today's talk, I will focus in on particular data and sensor-driven approaches using machine learning and deep learning AI, and focus on soil carbon pools, fractions, and soil organic carbon in Florida, US, and also at global scale. Now, when we take a look at soil carbon storage capacity with climate smart management practices or all kinds of agricultural practices, there are options either to sequester carbon, to reach an attainable carbon storage at a site, or to lose carbon. In particular, long-term conventional practices tend to also lose soil carbon. So the question about what are the carbon gains, carbon additionality, and what are the carbon losses is extremely important from a research perspective, but also management perspective. And of course, the avoidance of carbon losses through greenhouse gas emissions needs to also be minimized. But the carbon sequestration rates in global croplands vary widely, as we can see here, an assessment by Zoma between 0.9 and 1.85 petagrams carbon per year. Yet the initiative for per million global initiative of soils for food security and climate assessed that actually there's a potential of 26 to 53% carbon sequestration. Now, to assess how much carbon sequestration occurs is scale dependent, it requires a spatial explicit assessment at fine pixel resolutions, and of course with high accuracy of models. The uncertainties need to be considered, and also the geographic variability of soils and environmental factors. So AI models are very powerful and potent to address these type of really questions related to carbon, particularly in the realm of ecological crisis and challenges that we face. The soil measurements can be incorporated into AI models, combined with big data sets from environmental geodatabases, and used to create digital soil health assessments, but also digital soil carbon stock or footprints. Now, these type of models require lots of data. They are very data hungry to characterize soil landscapes. And in particular, we are looking here at an assembly of soil environmental data cubes or environmental covariates of soil, terrain properties, ecological, geological, or paramaterial properties, atmospheric or climatic data, hydrologic data, biota or vegetation data, and also management-related information if available. Now, all these different factors can be populated in various ways using, in particular, Earth remote sensing data, for example, vegetation indices that can be aggregated over short time periods, but also long-term averages can be calculated. And combined with soil carbon measurements that can be fed into AI models to perform first feature selections to reduce the dimensionality of data sets, because we are talking of hundreds and hundreds of these environmental covariates for a landscape or watershed that are incorporated into these models. Before conducting the AI modeling using error and uncertainty assessment, in essence, the training of models and the validation and evaluation of models. Now, combined with soil carbon measurements, these environmental covariates can form and produce AI models. The question is, how can we also derive cost-effectively soil measurements at many locations? And this is where proximal soil sensing has become very, very important. Where, in essence, visible near-infrared spectral data or mid-infrared spectral data can be collected using laboratory or spectroradiometers or portable ones or mounted ones on vehicles, tractors, or ATVs. So these are hyperspectral data that have hundreds and actually some thousands of variables reflectance data that combined with analytical soil measurements can be used also in AI modeling to develop soil prediction models. And I will come back later with few applications. In addition, there are also digital soil core systems available. Here, Landscan AI, we collaborate with Landscan AI. It's a multi-sensor soil system that allows to collect, in essence, multiple data, including also soil images. But the resolution along the vertical soil profile is high resolution. So here we are talking about millimeter scale and resolution of data that are collected, for example, sleeve friction, tip force, dielectric permittivity, electrical resistivity, and soil images like you see here also going down in soil profile that provides information about color, pore space, and other kind of soil-related data. In addition, there's an visible near-infrared spectrometer built into the system, and soil moisture is measured as well. So these type of data can be used and incorporated and combined with the environmental covariates to perform various AI algorithms. For example, support vector machines that uses hyperplanes for modeling, partially square regressions, a lot of the regression tree model approaches, including also random forest or QBIST, and deep learning networks like convolutional neural networks. So many of these applications have been built, and I will present to you today a few results from our AI-based soil carbon modeling. This study was conducted in Florida, and this work goes back more than 10 years, where AI modeling pedometrics started about 15 years ago. And since then, they have been heavily also used and applied in soil applications. Yeah, the idea was to quantify topsoil soil organic carbon in the state of Florida. Over 1,000 soil samples were collected over the state, and 210 environmental covariates assembled. In addition, also soil organic carbon and bulk density measured collected. There were different approaches used, and I will explain this on the next slide, where in essence pre-selection methods were combined with various AI modeling techniques. Including, as we see here, back regression tree, boosted regression, random forest, and cubic. Now, we started with a set of comprehensive environmental covariates, many of them derived from remote sensing and other geodatabases. However, we went through a procedure to also reduce the data space. In essence, all relevant variable selection and minimal optimal selections that reduced the environmental data set in the AI models from 210 to 43, and in one case, even to 4 different variables before applying the machine learning AI methods. The idea was also to identify the most parsimonious model for the state of Florida. And here are some results in the table, cross-validation results. And on the right-hand side, we see graphs showing validation results for different methods. So here we see that the best performing method was random forest in cross-validation, but also in validation mode. There are still some scatter, yet we are working also across a large region. The models achieved an highest R-square of about 0.63. Now, in terms of the most parsimonious model used for predictor variables, and this is also of interest, what is driving and explaining these AI models? Mainly vegetation-specific variables and hydrologic variables like available water capacity and soil hydration. Here's the map that shows the distribution of soil carbon concentrated here in terms of the stocks in coastal areas, South Florida, and some also areas in the St. Johns River Basin. Now, if you look at the importance of all relevant variables, we find that soil, biotic, and hydrologic predictor variables work best, whereas climatic variables had less effect on the predictive quality and model performance. Another study here conducted in Florida, where the idea was also to develop a specific new method that incorporates latent variable model, but can digest efficiently also categorical input variables. And this method, 2 new methods actually, one used a 2-step regression model using ridge regression, and the other one combined AI approach with Bayesian model. Now, And very similar data set was used, but here we focused not only on soil organic carbon, but also carbon pools like moderate available carbon, labile carbon, or hot water extractable carbon, and recalcitrant carbon. Now, the models that were derived show clearly that the new method that we developed performed better, nearly, I would say, excellent in terms of modeling the different carbon fractions over here compared to unique machine learning methods. Now, it comes very close also to spectral models developed from visible near-infrared spectra on these over 1,000 sites, chemometric models. Here we see the highest performance had close of a 0.9 square. So these are really good and well-performing models. Whereas some fractions, as we see here, for example, the labile fraction is more difficult to model, which had poorer performance overall in all different modes. Now, here's some maps, and we can take a look at the spatial patterns across the state. For soil organic carbon, we see a lot of variability also showing up in these models that seem to be progressing because this was work more recently really developed in about 2021. Now, in another study, we compared different machine learning methods, again in the state of Florida. We also compared these machine learning methods to geostatistical methods and hybrid methods called regression kriging to identify if machine learning performs better to make predictions for different carbon pools. And here clearly it was shown that in this case, random forest was the best performing model, and it performed substantially better than, for example, the hybrid methods, regression kriging, and most poorly performing was ordinary kriging or geostatistical method. Important was that the predictor variables were again biotic and hydrologic variables, whereas topographic variables and climatic variables had less predictive power in these type of models. Now, when we look at the maps for total carbon and recalcitrant carbon, we see quite some similar distribution patterns. There's labile carbon that is management related and more active in the soil is much more diverse in terms of the distribution. Now, in terms of these models, it shows also here the mean comparison in terms of compare the modeled and the observed values here in brown color. We see that in essence, the models in this case showed differences, yet overall, of course, the mean values matched quite well to each other. Now, interesting is also to look not only at soil carbon stocks, but at soil carbon sequestration rates and how they relate also to climate change. And in this investigation, we focused on assessment of soil carbon sequestration using an historic data set and current data set, in essence, that was sampled in about 2009. Where we resampled close to 200 sites in the topsoil. And we see here that there is a lot of diverse really patterns. There are no clear patterns because the regressions were very poor, as we see here in these models, soil organic carbon sequestration plotted against maximum annual temperature and precipitation. There are those systems that stayed in crops or those systems stayed in pine still showed quite a lot of variability that seems to be site-specific in the state of Florida. Now, if we aggregate all results together, we found that carbon soils have acted as a net sink in the state of Florida. Here we see an increase from 2.69 to 3.4 kilogram per square meter in carbon. But of course, this comes at the question in terms of what were the main drivers? Was it land use change or climate change? And land use change seemed to be having a larger signature imprint on soil carbon sequestration than climatic change over this 40-year period. In particular, dramatic is the urbanization in Florida, the loss of agricultural land and also rangeland, a slight increase actually in wetlands. Now, focused on thinking about carbon and the optimization of carbon models, in particular to derive management recommendation, we applied AI to combine it with a method that can optimize or can derive optimized carbon predictions. It's called DEA, the Data Envelopment Analysis, that compares different sites to a frontier line that calculates the maximum attainable carbon in a given region. And the further apart the site is from this maximum amount, it can be also improved through management interventions. And here we see different soils, one high in carbon, and some are lower in carbon or carbon concentrated only in specific layers. These are all questions in terms of these type of soils, how could they be optimized in terms of carbon management? So we asked the question from an input orientation. How can we minimize, for example, fertilization while maintaining the same targeted soil organic carbon sequestration rate? Or put the other way, in a form of an output orientation, asking what would be the maximum soil organic carbon sequestration rate at the same nitrogen fertilization rate. So, of course, other questions can be asked in this multifactorial system to bring in also other predictors like vegetation or climatic factors. For the state of Florida, we conducted this analysis at over 1,000 sites, which we see here plotted. But on this map, you see also lots of overplotting. That's why we also derived an interpolated map that shows the estimated score values, in essence, identifying sites that are efficient in terms of carbon storage and inefficient sites here in blue. So we see also where the geographic location of these inefficient sites are that could benefit from a management intervention. For example, the implementation of climate smart practices. Now I'm shifting mode here and wanted to share a few more slides related to AI-based spectral modeling of soil carbon, because these are powerful models that incorporate, in this case, visible near-infrared spectral data combined with various soil health properties, among them soil organic carbon, texture, cation exchange capacity, and more. So this study was done at global scale via over 23,600 spectra and soil measurements were incorporated and processed with wavelet analysis and Q-based machine learning. For soil organic carbon, the validation results were very, very good. An R-square of close to 0.9. And also the other metrics in terms of the mean prediction error and the residual prediction deviation was quite high. So here we like to see also a high value, which we did. This showcased that spectral data can be very cost-effective way to rapidly also derive these spectral libraries, and we can make predictions across the globe if spectral data are available. So bringing down the cost also for soil analysis or soil predictions in this case. Another study via VNIR data and AI was used here in collaboration with our Brazilian colleagues, where in essence a global data set of 28,000 spectra was assembled, in addition to over 49,000 spectra from Brazil, with 65 different international collaborators from various countries. Here again, wavelet and QBIS was used. But here we tested also against mid-infrared and visible near-infrared spectra that were derived from the Brazilian data set, and local prediction that was country-specific, using only the country-specific data called, in essence, the local model, and then a compiled spectral global model where all data were pulled together. And so the idea was also to see the differences among these local and also global models. And here I highlight among the long list of countries in the United States, which showed very good performance in terms of making predictions for soil organic carbon within the United States. But the global model actually degraded very much so the predictions made here in the US. In terms of the poorest predictions were made in Ireland and Italy, and United States in terms of the root mean square error came actually out pretty good. Although Japan and Paraguay came out even better. So for the United States, we also, my group developed a predictive model using visible near infrared as an input on a large data set from the United States. Here you see these sampling sites, including soil organic carbon. And it was found that in this case, the validation data results were very, very good, showing the best performance for the QBIS model. And we see here the predictions and observations are closely aligned along the line of equal values. So these models are certainly very powerful, including also for Florida, where we compared visible near infrared, mid infrared, and combined pooled visible near and mid infrared data. And we can backtrack even the chemistry in terms of what type of chemical carbon bonds and fractions really had predictive power in these AI models that were actually also quite well performing here with high R-square values. Now I'm coming to the end. Just a few final remarks. What we see is that AI modeling is very powerful for soil organic carbon concentration and stocks. But of course, the data sets for soil organic carbon sequestration assessments are still quite sparse, and only cost-effective sensor systems can help to overcome this problem. But this research focus stands in sharp contrast with the current carbon economy and policy, crediting and marketing that focus on very costly traditional soil measurements and the proof of permanence that soil organic carbon is stored permanently in recalcitrant form in the soil. And that's quite difficult to prove. Actual versus attainable carbon is certainly a very good method to assess the efficiencies of carbon storage and develop management recommendations for soil and crops. And of course, also the potency of these type of AI models that can be applied not only for carbon, but other soil health and ecosystem methods that have shown even better performance than many of the process-based models. Then few ongoing projects that I like to mention the big climate smart agricultural management project focused on specialty crops that have started, and also modeling of AI carbon and soil moisture across the US. But these type of modeling activities can only be supported with cost-effective proximal soil sensing techniques that help and now have become also available for field with portable sensors to become really much more efficient. And yeah, there's time for questions. I invite them certainly in.
Great. Yeah. So we'll have a couple minutes for question and answering time. Any questions from Zoom audience? Any questions? Then I have one question. So I saw your soil sampling, and you mentioned about this image-based analysis briefly about not enough resolution, if I understood correctly. Do you have any ideas to give it to maybe engineers for working with computer vision area? What can be improved and how we can collaborate on this matter?
Yeah. Oh, I think in terms of soil imaging has huge potential. One of my students is currently working on a global application of soil imaging and AI modeling to make predictions for soil health properties. But also new sensor systems like the Landscan AI system. We have results that are very promising and very encouraging to improve really the capabilities to make better predictions and also to connect many more and visit many more sites, because these systems with sensors can be, of course, be done much more rapidly and much cheaper. And I think this is what soil science really needed to give us tools. And that's where possibly other sensors developed by engineers could help to even further boost up the data quality and the data density. Because AI models, they are data hungry. The better data we collect, the better model predictions we can make, and the higher resolution soil maps we can produce. So thinking about precision agriculture, that's certainly something that we would like to see more in the future.
I see. So that high resolution means not necessarily about the sensing quality itself, but also spatial resolution.
Yeah, both spatial and spectral resolution, because we are talking about hyperspectral data. Also reflectance data. These are thousands of variables from spectral readings for one sample that can be incorporated to make predictions. So in that sense, they are much more powerful than remote sensing, like lens sentinel data.
Yeah.
And can boost also the quality of predictions derived from these models.
Yeah. Charlie, you have a question?
Yes, I think Sabina, first, it's a very impressive presentation and a very impressive research program. So you just touched base on the satellite imaging. I was just curious, yeah, for larger scale, global scale soil carbon mapping, how do you evaluate the accuracy of satellite-based soil sensing?
Yeah, we actually just finished another paper on bare soil earth sensing. And the uncertainties, of course, are still higher than, for example, compared to the models that I presented to you, in particular for the state of Florida, like regional scale. Yet they have their value too, because they can compare different regions that are also suffering from land degradation problem and erosion problems, salinization problems, because this can be sensed through remote sensing quite well. There's processes that happen at the soil surface. But of course, these type of remote sensing applications don't penetrate, except for soil moisture sensors that suffer from coarse spatial resolutions, like SMAP data. We have a current project where we try to downscale also soil moisture data through AI, LSTM models to produce higher resolution, finer resolution soil products in near real time. And there's some quite exciting work that can be done also using remote sensing as really a key component in the AI modeling process. Right? But I think we have to tackle it from both sides, remote sensing from top and on the ground sensing, also bottom up, right, in terms of collecting as best as possible ground data that can give us good information about the spatial variability of soils. Because when we think about soil carbon, the variation happens at the feet meter scale, right? That's how good our models need to be valuable also for precision agriculture management. Yet for inventories and like carbon accounting systems, of course, you can go a little bit coarser to also produce relatively good models, I would say, that demonstrate also capabilities that we didn't have in the past. So these models are getting better and better.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your presentation and also the discussion. So now we're going to proceed with our second speaker, Dr. Kevin Wang. He's one of new AI hire and my neighbor in GCRC. Dr. Kevin Wang received PhD in biological and agriculture engineering from Kansas State University and a master's degree in computer science from China Agricultural University. He started his postdoc research at Applied Wheat Genomics Lab at Kansas State University, mentored by Professor Jeff Pollan, with a research emphasis on enhancing phenomics in wheat breeding. In 2021, Dr. Wang joined UF and located in Gulf Coast Research and Education Center. His lab focuses on leveraging applied AI technologies to advance phenomics for the breeding of specialty crops. This work primarily involves high-throughput plant phenotyping and the analysis of plant traits to support breeding decisions. Let's welcome Dr. Kevin Wang. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dana. You can hear me, right? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So today I want to talk about how we can apply some artificial intelligence technology to advance plant breeding. So my research is kind of like at the intersection of plant science, computer science, and engineering. So usually I start to explain why we can use artificial intelligence to work on plant breeding. So when we talk about plant breeding, it's more like a numbers game. So the more large population the breeders can build at the beginning, more new varieties may be selected or developed at the end. So using our strawberry breeding programs at UF IFAS GCREC as an example, so the breeding team usually start about 50 to 60,000 those nursery plants. And by marker selection, and they probably will reduce that and only select about 15,000 those nurseries to plant. They call the stage 1 seedling trials. And then from that, they will select about 400 varieties or genotypes as the stage 2 colonal trials and plant that in field for evaluation or selection. And then from that 400 genotypes, they will select about 10 to 15 lines as the advanced trials and plant it for field evaluation. And finally, from that 10 to 15 lines, they will probably develop 1 to 2 new varieties. So this is like the whole selection cycle for this breeding program. So we always say during this breeding program, the evaluation usually takes a very long period because breeders needs to select, for example, based on those disease resistance, some stress, tolerance, the yield, or the final quality of those the seed, the new varieties. And based on all those traits, they will do a selection, maybe only a small part of that. So this we call like a breeding cycle. So the final or the ultimate goal is to increase this genetic gain over time. So this is the breeder's favorite equation. So as you can see, there are several factors, like selection intensity, that usually means the population they can build at the beginning. And then the selection accuracy. That is how they, select from those quantitative traits, to build the next stage population. And genetic variance means usually they build a population with more variation in different traits, so they can select, more options. And then ultimate goal is to reduce this years per cycle, because we're under this climate change, this pressure, the population pressure. We always want to develop some new varieties to feed the world large population. So this is the equation. And talking about phenomics, so it is known that phenome, for example, we'll have human phenome, we have plant phenome, like the color of eyes, the hairs, or for example, like the plant, the size of the fruit or the flower, the color of the flower, those are all the phenome. So phenome equals to gene by environment and by other factors, for example, management or some other environment factors. And phenomics is the study of plant growth, performance, and the composition. And it's one of the omics approach. You can see that from the DNA and then the RNA, proteins, and some biochemistry, and finally we will see some phenotype. So it's kind of like an expression of all those compound factors. So the more accurate we can quantify those phenotypes, and the more helpful we can try to explain some of those mechanisms in science. So phenomics uses phenotyping tools and trying to siege those collections of germplasm of those value traits. So those are like a fun, like a brief introduction of plant breeding and the phenomics. Then how maybe people then ask, how can artificial intelligence advance plant breeding? Well, probably the ultimate goal, we want to create some, robot as maybe assistant, they can just help the breeder do the field scouting and say, okay, so according to what I learned from this breeder, how can I do the selection, in the field? But this is probably not be implemented right now. So maybe we can just, doing research or, making progress toward that direction. Okay, so in that case, how can artificial intelligence and advance plant breeding? So our primary objective is to provide those plant breeders those advanced selection support tools to increase the genetic gain. Remember this equation I introduced before. So from that, I always say we have kind of like 3 steps so we can achieve that goal. The first one is we can try to increase the selection intensity. So through, for example, automation, automated autonomous vehicles, robotics, and add some smart sensors to those platforms, trying to expand this breeding population to help the breeders cover as large population and field coverage as possible, and also to save some labor and time expenses. And after those raw data was collected, the next tier or the next step is we want to trying to extract some quantitative or accurate trait from those raw data. And in this step, we can use some computer vision or machine learning, deep learning technologies. So we can, those tools can help us to enhance those measurement precision and also trying to mitigate or reduce those human bias. Why I said that, for example, if we don't have time to scout or monitor or record those traits, maybe we'll need to send different staff into the field. So different people may have different standard or their way to score some trait. Those are called human bias. But we want to try to using sensing technologies or some data processing to try to reduce those bias. And finally, after we got those different multi-trait, we want to build prediction models. And also we can apply some explainable artificial intelligence tools to look deep into those neural networks or intermediate layers to explain those feature space. And finally, we can offer some comprehensive information to the breeders to help them make this decision. So that is kind of like the 3 tiers we can use artificial intelligence technologies to advance plant breeding. So at UF, we started we called it an initiative project called AI-driven Phenomics to advance plant breeding in Florida. And this project is supported by the Lift AI by IFAS. And this is like a big group, including engineers, computer scientists, plant breeders, agronomists. So our overall goal is trying to develop some high throughput plant phenotyping platform, tools, robotics to trying to increase this breeders selection intensity. And we also want to develop some algorithm or machine vision tools, models to identify and segment those different plant parts, fruit, flowers. And after that, we want to build those maybe machine learning or deep learning models to provide some prediction, how, for example, predict the yield, predict the biomass. Those ones can all help the breeding programs. So today, I just want to focus on two sub-projects that I worked in the strawberry breeding programs. So as you can see, actually, there are more than 20 breeding programs, and we have very famous, engineer scientists that are working on different programs right now. Okay, so the first one we call the strawberry plant parts detection. So our objective is to accurately quantify the strawberry plant parts through the AI-assisted machine vision. Here, those strawberry plant parts, we will include the flowers, the mature fruit, immature fruit, and the runners. And actually, the runners we think is the most difficult to identify because there's not many features compared to fruit and flowers. So like a brief methods include we want to using some machine, mobile phenotyping system to do this high throughput phenotyping. And in 2022 to 23, we collected still images. And in this, the past season from 23 to 24, we start to collect those high resolution videos to trying to improve our data collection in efficiency. Because we're working on the breeding program. So each plant will represent an individual genotype. So we have to identify the plant, which genotype is this plant first, compared to precision in ag or the production ag programs. Probably they can do that, count those plant parts by by bed or by plot. So, but we have to do that by plant. So we have like a semi-automated pipeline, so to help us to automatically identify, okay, which image or which part of the videos are linked with which genotype. And then finally, when we extract those frames from the videos, we can do this multi-object identification by training a deep neural network. So here we use a YOLO V8-based DCNN to do this multi-object identification and segmentation. So this one shows like evolution of our ground-based phenotyping system. So we start in the fall 2022 by this pushing cart, and then we integrate this this kind of semi-automated vehicle. We put some cameras on this, and then like after the summertime, we do some further refinement to that platform. We add this kind of like a canopy, this closed chamber to this platform because we want to keep a consistent imaging environment. So that will trying to improve the prediction result. Okay, so this one shows like improvement with our YOLO V8 model. So at the first season, when we collect data in season of 2022 to 2023, we're trying to using a trained about 8,400 images used for training. And the first kind of like our first version model, first generation model, we kind of like classify, we create four classes: the flower, mature fruit, and the runners. So this is like kind of like the accuracy for this object identification. And in the past season, 2023 to 2024, we add 810 new images because we started to using the new cameras, different angles, different environment to capture the images and different varieties. So we're trying to improve the generic of those data used for training this model. And we also add some two more classes. We add the stake, and I will show what the stake is, and some yellow paint on the bed. Because especially for those yellow paint, those lines somehow looked very similar to the runners. So we want to reduce those errors if the runners were identified as paintings. So, and as you can see, the model identification accuracy was improved by adding some new images and retrained after that. So this is kind of like we're using the 6 NVIDIA A100 GPUs to retrain this model and do the prediction. So here's a demo to show different versions of models for prediction. So you can see these are the stakes. So because that will show which genotype we're looking at. So with that, we can extract those words or the genotype name of those stakes. So like a potential in case we can do like some real-time, identification. So this kind of like a demo, and this one shows like the card, that we put different cameras on that card. We put the light source, and then we're trying to improve the video quality and trying to help us to identify different plant parts. So this is like a demo, so showing some maybe a little bit improvement from our second generation model. Okay, so there's some preliminary results since we just started to do, trying to generate some quantitative results. We don't have many, plants we can process. So we only select one rep in 2 beds, including 442 genotypes, 442 plants in November 2023, kind of like a validation of our, model performance. But I want to trying to explain here because we're still using the 2023 model. We haven't started using 2024 model to do this prediction. So the result can be further improved. So, but you can see for this using the 2023 model for prediction, we can tell like about 92% of those all the plants, the runner count is within like a ±1. So I should say there are great potential for us to improve this accuracy, trying toward this perfect accuracy. And here I want to mention is we're following this kind of like a pipeline to do this runner counting, because we're using the videos this year. So you can imagine for each plant there are probably 100 those frames per plant. So we're trying to segment those runners from each frame, and we're using the mode value of those runners as this plant level runner count. So as a prediction, error survey, when we want to see why those errors are from. So first we can see those runners maybe from those neighbor plant. So in that case, actually, for example, this run is from that plant, but we may recognize that from this plant. So that's kind of like one reason. And it overlaps. For example, there are 2 runners. A human being can see that, but the program can only tell you, okay, there's only 1 runner there. So those are potential errors. And for some small plants, this model may recognize them as still as a runner, but this is actually a plant. And also from the camera viewing angles. For example, the stake blocked 1 runner, so they may recognize as 2 runners rather than 1 runner. So we may change those camera angles to improve that. So the next step, we're trying to do first thing, we're going to improve this model prediction accuracy. We're trying to improve using the 2024 model to do this prediction. And then maybe in the next season, we can try to refine this imagery acquisition setting. For example, we'll change the camera view angle or maybe add more cameras to achieve this multi-camera view. We'll also maybe think about doing some mechanical separation. For example, like add some mechanical parts at the middle or at the center of this bed to put kind of like all the runners into one side. So in that case, maybe you can help us to solve some technical issues. And we're trying to do some end-to-end prediction. That means probably we can just train a model with number of runners rather than just count the the number. Ask the model to count the runners. And then the last goal, we're trying to implement a real-time prediction and trying to probably deploy a computer on this ground vehicle and do this real-time prediction. Okay, so that is the first project I want to introduce. So the next one I want to introduce another project. It's called the strawberry biomass prediction. So why we want to evaluate the biomass is the breeder usually find like a balance between the fruit yield and the biomass, because it doesn't say like if the more biomass the plant can generate, the more yield it can get, right? So but traditionally, breeders, they have to chop those plants out from the field and do this destructively the measurement of those brown biomass. So we want to see if we can use some non-destructive method. So our hypothesis is we think the plant volume has a high correlation with the fresh biomass, and see if we can use that to predict the biomass. So in that case, we also using this ground phenotyping platform and collect, this 4K images and also the videos from different angles. Okay, and this starting from this season, we started using the also the drones, because the ground imaging is pretty slow. So we want to improve this data collection speed, trying to accelerate this prediction. We try to generate 3D models of those plants, because from 2D images that there's not enough information for us to generate or trying to derive this plant volume information. So we tried 3 different methodologies to generate the 3D plant model. Traditionally, a lot of people using this structure from motion photogrammetry. This is like a very broad applied methodology from 2D images to generate 3D models. Next one is called neural radiance fields, it's NERF. NERF is kind of like a neural network that can reconstruct those complex 3D images from a partial set of those 2-dimensional images. So that is the advantage why people want to use that somehow to improve this computational efficiency. And there's a new technology, relatively new. Well, actually, it's not that new, because this 3D Gaussian is kind of like that they created this technology in the 90s. But since this recently, this application of the visualization of those screens in real time, and trying to broaden it back to the world, say, oh, okay, maybe we can apply this technology to also improve the computational efficiency. So after we generate those 3D models, we're using a tool called 3D convex hull to estimate the volume. And this image shows how the breeding team doing this destructive measurement to chop it down and measure that in the field. So as I said, in this project, we'll be using both the ground-based phenotyping system, using the cart and also the drones. So as you can see in this cart system, we have 3 cameras. We do this multi-view, and we move that or drive this vehicle along this bed direction. And with the drone, we do this circular mode to capture 360 degrees of those that we call the area of interest or point of interest. So this is like a 3D point cloud model using the structure from motion photogrammetry we generated in 2022 to 2023. So this is basically the technology we used for this biomass prediction in the 2022 season. And you can see, since this one using photogrammetry, there are a lot of holes in this 3D model, because photogrammetry basically just stitch those images. So if they cannot find those common points between images, they probably would just leave it blank. So you can see there's like certain holes there. But overall, this 3D model actually reflect a lot of those structural information, and can also help us to delineate this 3D volume information of this plant. And in this season, actually late this season, we start to using the drones to capture videos, and then using the 3D Gaussian splatting to generate this rendered 3D splats. So this is like as you can see, it's the late stage, because the plant already grows like a pretty large. So, but actually you can see, compared to that traditional structure from motion photogrammetry, the completeness of this model by 3DGS is very nice. So you can see from side view, from different sides, there are not as many as the holes compared to structure from motion photogrammetry. Yeah, so this is like the rendered 3D splats using this technology. Okay, So we do some comparison when after we generate, using different data collection methodologies, different data processing technologies to generate this 3D model. And this is from the top view, and this is from the side view. So you can see this one is using ground images and using the structural motion technology. And as we said, there are certain holes from the spec, you can see that. So the completeness of this image is not very good because we're lacking of some information from side views. But you can see from that, when we switch that to aerial video in 360-degree mode, so we can see the completeness from this model is much improved compared to this ground imaging platform. But still, we're using the structural motion technology. So this one, the difference is we're using the nerve to generate the 3D models. So you can see it's kind of like this model is not as crispy as as those ones. So there's kind of like a vague features from that. But we thought maybe still, because we're just using the convex hull, we're not just trying to look deep into like each leaf. So maybe it's still okay to just delineate the volume of that plane. And the last one is the 3D splats using the aerial videos, but from a different, data processing technology. Here, those ones showing, like the convex hull to delineate the volume. You may feel like this one is a little bit weird because those three are all we call the point cloud models. This one, since this is 3D Gaussian splatting technology, is still relatively new. So they're not, those, free or say, public tools for us to generate the points. So we have to figure out we have to find another tools called, the SUGAR to generate the mesh. So it's not a point-based, it's a mesh-based, 3D model. So we use that to apply this 3D convex hull to delineate the volume. Okay, so this is showing some preliminary result. So as I said, in 2022, 2023, we're just using ground image and using the structure from motion photogrammetry to do this volume estimation and using that to see if there's any correlation with the ground truth biomass, fresh biomass. And seasonally, you can see this, value kind of like at the low at the beginning and also low at the end. So we saw the potential reason probably at the early stage, the biomass may be, lower than those estimated volume because you can imagine those plants are small. So like a lot of those kind of like, only a little bit, stems or leaves, but volume kind of like delineated from those convex hull is large, but the biomass. But then on the contrary, in the late stage, the biomass, because those, especially for those very high density plant, there are a lot of, stems or vegetations in the center, but it's blocked by the canopy. So probably we can only use the canopy to delineate this volume, but actually there are more, vegetation, in the center. Another reason is there are a lot of weeds under the canopy. So there may be like a chop and then maybe measured as the biomass. So that's kind of like a lot larger than those estimated volume. So this is kind of like a seasonal, comparison from between this estimated volume and fresh biomass. And then this year, since we just captured, only a few times of those different methodologies at the late stage, so we only have like a kind of like a one-time, comparison right now for like a preliminary, result. So you can see among like the different methodologies, those correlations are pretty high. So although like we don't have like, like a real ground truth to measure those volumes, in the field, say how we can quantify that. But if we're just running a linear regression to using the volume, like single trait to predict the biomass, still the correlation between different methodologies are really high. Okay, but still, I feel like still the best one will be this one, still using the structure from motion in technology compared to the others. And compare those different methodologies, the prediction result with the ground truth. Well, the correlation is reduced a lot from that, especially because those 2 points. But there is a reason. So we do some field validations on why there's kind of like 2 outliers there. So you can see it because it's a late stage, and those 2 varieties are from California, not our local strawberry variety. So you can see a lot of those high density vegetation at the center. So if covered by the canopy, we can't just, kind of like missing a lot of huge amount of factors in the middle. So that's why those ones, the ground truth biomass is high, but our prediction based on the volume is low than that. So that's kind of like a reason. Cool. So we feel like, using this aerial video recording can highly improve this, data collection compared to the ground imaging platform. And as we see, already found some potential issues with those high density, biomass. We probably want to involve some, see-through technology. For example, maybe using LiDAR or radar sensors to kind of like as another, dimension or model data to kind of like a fusion with those color, based 2D to 3D technologies to, evaluate the biomass. And for data processing, we can see, if we're just talking about the 3D model completeness, NeRF 3D Gaussian splatting is better than structure from motion, but still rely on which view angles we're looking at those targets. For rendering effect, where the performance 3D Gaussian splatting kind of like is the best, is the winner among those among those three. And for computational efficiency, well, we saw at the beginning, we think that structure from motion is a little relatively slow, but it turns out when we apply some better performance GPU or add the memory CPUs, are not very large significant difference with the computation time. So that's what we learned from this project. So as a conclusion, we thought AI has a great potential to advance plant breeding. And if you see this week's this NVIDIA GTC, actually Jensen Huang mentioned, maybe the next stage is do this multi-input and multi-output. And actually, I feel like it's aligned with this figure I draw for my previous one of talk. I said, well, in probably that's direction we are working on, is trying to involve different or modality, multi-deal, or a lot of factors to this big model to do better prediction. And I think plant digital twin is kind of like the way we're going to. So you can see we generate some those renderized like kind of like a virtual environment. So probably the next steps from the rasterizing to vectorizing, and from static to dynamic. So hopefully I can have some more collaboration with Dr. Dana Choi at our center to maybe improve this digital twin research. And finally, I want to say I feel like a successful applied AI project requires, the first factor is the talents. Like still, although we're developing AI, but still we need the human, the personal, and the people to work on this project. And second is the computativity. For example, we're very lucky we have HybridGator here to help us do this really high capacity computing. So we do need like more computing resources. And the last one will be the data. So probably still, although I know like a lot of people mention the synthetic data, but I feel like yes, still for our research, the data also is also very important to go to the field to collect some data. Okay, so last I want to send my acknowledgement especially to my team members, postdoc Dr. Shuzhou. She basically leads all those machine vision project with the runner plant parts detection. And my PhD student Kai and Kay, they are leading the research with the strawberry biomass prediction. And also want to thank my research assistant from basically those are masters or undergraduates from Gainesville, from computer science department, and from the AP department. Also, I want to thank our special strawberry breeding lab at GCRC, Dr. Vance Whitaker, Cheryl, Jen, Fan, and Angel, and also our genetics and genomics lab, Dr. Song-Hee Lee and Caitlin. They helped us a lot with those ground truth data collection. Last but not least, but I want to thank our collaborator with this Lift AI project, Dr. Charlie Lee and Henry. So basically, also last thing is our funding support, our FSGA and this Florida seed producer, and also this IFAS Lift AI project. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Is there any question from audience? Questions? Okay, Kevin, then I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, so you mentioned robotic system will help for the breeding program. Can you explain a little bit more detail? What kind of robotic system or automation will help for this image acquisition process?
Still, first I would say is this autonomous navigation. So you can see probably, our students is, either drive that machine or drive the tractors, collect data. So if we have some autonomous system, I mean, at least it may save some, labor cost on that. So that's first thing. And second thing, when we talk about robotics, probably we think more with the actuation side, not just with the sensing side. But I mean, you can think about that because usually we can do things together, with sensing and plus doing some actuation. For example, if we can sense the runners, we'll find the runner, localizing those runners, and then next step will be just trying to remove the runners. So I would say like, either you send like a robotic system to the field, well, you can do multiple things, not just say, oh, I'm just purely doing a sensing or purely doing, this actuation management, but basically we can do a lot in that same time.
I see. So Jessica has a question. So what are the challenges of using LiDAR sensor? And sounds like it would help capture what's beneath the canopy.
Thank you. It's a good question. The first thing I would say, well, you have to consider the cost. Although there are some low-cost LiDAR sensors, I should say that. But usually low-cost LiDAR sensors, they have a relatively low resolution. So you can see those the 3D models we build using 2D to 3D technology. The pixel size is pretty small, so they give you a very nice granular to delineate some of the details. But LiDAR, if you check some low-cost LiDAR, usually the pixel resolution is relatively large. So in that case, you may imagine how many points will lie on those, target. For example, on the flowers, on the fruit. If there's the resolution maybe 1 centimeter per pixel, then you may imagine maybe only 2 or 3 points lying on the flower or a fruit. That will be hard for you to do this object identification. And also you have to think about, because LiDAR usually only have basically the point position information. They lack of those color information. So if you want to do some filtering or for some object identification, you probably still need to fusion some color information to help you identify which part. Is that a fruit? Is that a flower? Maybe there's some certain color patterns for you to help that. So those are all things you may consider, which, either you want to use a LiDAR or some other, 2D to 3D technologies.
Hi, Kevin.
Oh, yeah, Yanis.
I have one question too. Thank you for your presentation. That's great work. I have 2 questions. One is about the data processing. I don't know what is your thoughts on that, because we can use LiDAR or even sensor fusion, right, to even decrease the cost of the sensing system. So you don't buy a very expensive LiDAR, but as you said, you combine it with maybe RGB or RGBD depth cameras. But what about really the processing? Like from the time you collect the data until the time you come up with a decision, or at least the visualization of the data, how we can reduce this time? Because I'm sure you know that this is very, very important, especially for decision making, even for breeders, but even for growers or others. I mean, they want to know, they want to see the results soon, not takes like a week or even more to visualize the data, analyze them, give them some graphs and say, hey, now you can go and irrigate, for example, like too late. So any thoughts on that, how we can improve that step?
Yeah, I think that is a very important question, a good question. Yes, to be honest, if we're using any sensor to generate this 3D data, because we kind of involve more dimensional to this data set, that will absolutely increase data processing time. Although we say we are trying to generate like a pipeline, so we can leave that to Hypergator and they just run that automatically, but still that may take probably hours. We're talking about hours. So I would say fundamentally, hopefully, if we can use some, high technology, if we can get more support from NVIDIA, maybe they can give us, okay, for example, like they even tell me, say, okay, the GPU you're using is kind of like a 5 generation ago we're using. So we're going to supply some more high technology for you to highly increase your data processing time. When I hear that, I feel like, wow, that's super exciting to hear that. But still, I mean, the second thing, as you said, I think philosophy for me is I don't want to sell like, okay, even we can generate this 3D model, but you have to use that. For different applications, we have to select maybe the smart tools. For example, you develop this in AgriView. I mean, for two-dimensional ones, that probably we can already get a lot of information for precision ag management. I think that's already, we don't have to say using the 3D or something, but for certain application, maybe you say, oh, maybe the 3D information can help me a lot. Then somehow you have to take that cost. Say, okay, that may take more time for computation, but at the same time, you may get more information from that, whether you can compensate with your data processing time. So that's probably how you evaluate that.
Thank you. And the second question is about the runners. Did you have a plan to develop a proposal or something for dealing with the runner? Is it a big problem really? Or I think you are aware, I think I told you, like Dr. Lee, I think he just left the meeting, and I and some others, we put a proposal like a few years ago, not successful proposal, but about, developing a mechanical system, a robotic system to identify and cut the runners.
Yeah.
But first of all, I'm not sure if it's if they see it as a, I know that some of the growers or breeders, they see it as a big problem, but what is the general perspective, and is it that important or not really? And do you have a plans? Maybe with Dana, I know she was thinking also to put something.
Thank you. That's a really good question. To be honest, we talked to growers, and I think still the objective is on our list. So we might need to develop some either prototype or something for runner cutter. I feel like yes, because I do feel we have a lot of talents here. In ABU or in IFAS wide. A lot of people, they have like their your experience, expertise. Yes, I mean, we should develop like a pretty competitive proposal, since we have a preliminary result and we have robotics experience. We should be able to develop a very nice proposal. Yes, I'm very open. I want to collaborate with Dana and you and Dr. Lee, and Henry to work on this. Yes.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yep.
Great work.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I have a lot to say about this runner. We should talk together. Yeah. So yeah, this was all for today's seminar. Thank you very much for attending this. I'm going to share next schedule. We're not fixed yet, but for sure we'll have external speakers next month. So stay tuned. I'll send out reminders also. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.